Good evening and welcome everyone to Studio W, the Buzz, your global radio network. You know, we circle this thing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with some of the finest in broadcasting you can find anywhere around the globe. The program tonight is Groove Swing Speaks, and if you listen to us on a regular basis, you know we bring the best in our culture, the diversity, the education. We talk about business, medicine, science, practically anything that affects everything. So, welcome to Groove Swing Speaks. You have time to tell your friends about it. Tell them come around because we have a very, very important program tonight. We have a special guest, Zakia Benyard. He is our special guest today. But before we introduce her, I'm going to welcome my brother, my groove brother, my biological brother, Sergeant Clayton Brown. Hey, Sarge, what's going on?
Good evening, good evening, good evening, Zakia.
Uh,
Welcome.
Zakia.
Pardon me,
Is Zach
Zakia.
here?
Zakia. Oh,
Yes.
Zakia.
welcome, Zakia. Well, we have a couple of our waiting for a couple of our other panelists to come on before we really get into it. Brother Robert is out on assignment today. Tiffany as well. Tanisha should be joining us as also our swing sister out there in Southern California, Nakaya Watts. She will be joining us as well. So, let me just read a little bit about our special guest. Everyone has this information, all of the panelists do. Zach, Zakia Benyard is a native of Newark. Is at Newark, New Jersey. She holds a master's and bachelor's degree from Keene University in counseling and psychology, respectively. She currently works as the executive director for Writers Room Inc., executive assistant for Three Doctors Foundation, chairs the, is that Ajaya?
Ajaya, yes.
Ajaya Foundation, and works as a senior grants accounting manager for a local nonprofit company in Essex County. Now, we were going to talk about, now I want you to tell us a little bit more about yourself because you have a book coming up. You're an accountant, but that's not the passion that you really, really want to share with the world. So tell us a little bit more about you and how long you've been doing this.
I have an interesting background. I like to say I was a professional student, trying to figure out what my purpose was. And what I've noticed over the years is that I was always placed in some type of capacity to help people, whether it was peer mentoring, whether it was student government, and extracurricular activities in school. And I landed in accounting because it paid the bills. And it wasn't until a few years being an accountant that I noticed, especially after having my son, that I had a knack for helping people, finding resources, assisting people when they were struggling. And it just all came full circle why I had to go through the journey that I went through, because it positioned me to help people who didn't have the wherewithal to find resources or just needed someone to guide them in some way. So I guess it's always been there. I just wasn't taking heed to the clues.
Right. Yeah, and I noticed that with everything, your volunteer work, along with your regular vocation, your volunteer work that you do, and it's a subject that hasn't come to the forefront until here recently, and that's uh, autism. And I want you to tell us a little bit about that because you and I had a very interesting conversation off air earlier tonight, this evening rather today. Oh, let's welcome your swing sister Tanisha Holmes.
Hey,
Yes,
Hola, sis.
hola, how you doing, sis?
Good.
What
yeah.
chapter are you in? What chapter? Chapter.
I'm at large right now. I founded a JF chapter though.
Oh, okay, okay. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, and Tanisha and I, we were talking earlier today, and also Nakaya, because she said she already has some questions for you. And I find your work very interesting. I have some friends that have autistic children and grandchildren, and I asked them to tune in as well. I think this is an extremely, extremely valuable program because a lot of people don't know what it is,
Mhm.
and a lot of parents out there don't have the resources. Either they're not available, or they're limited, or they're scarce, And so I want you to talk a little bit. Let's go there for a second and talk about that, the challenges, because you and I we talked about uh, people, families are suffering with it. Parents, what are some things that parents need to know? If there were some things that you said, if you have an autistic child or grandchild or relative, what are some things that you really need to know to help the process go along a little smoother?
I would say in the beginning, when it comes to the school, to just get really familiar with the prize, which is the parent's right in special education when it comes to your rights in the school. When it comes to outside of school, I would definitely connect with resources that specialize with services for children with special needs, not just specifically autism. It could just be special needs in general. In Jersey, we have the Arc of Essex, we have SPAN, New Jersey. I think every state has some type of resource. I would start with your case manager to just understand what services are available. You can also reach out to your local DRC, or you could reach out to your local. I'm a loss for words right now. I normally riddle this like off real easy, but I guess I got to get the jitters out a little bit. But you could just reach out to your local resources. There's family success centers. There's your doctors or physicians. You can call your insurance company. They can give you a list of resources of doctors that are specific to the needs of your children, that can also link you with support services or social services in your area.
Okay. Now, would you say that, a lot of times there are let's say circumstances and situations that uh, children and parents are in, or let's say there is a different ability. We don't like talking about disabilities. We talk about different abilities. Let's say someone that has. Let's talk about the challenge of autism for a second. Would you say that there are some people out here, and I don't know whether there are degrees of it or not, that are perhaps misdiagnosed or misdiagnosed?
What I would say I find in our community is that there's a late diagnosis. And it's not just the doctors, sometimes it's the parents, because honestly, it's a tough diagnosis to accept. And sometimes adults want to write it off as, oh, they're just delayed. It's not that, because they don't want the stigma that's associated with the diagnosis. And what they don't understand is you're delaying the services that child can get, like early intervention at a young age, that can make a difference in the early ages of autism. But there's also doctors who just misdiagnose. They're bad doctors out here, right? Like they don't diagnose them properly. Autism may not be their specialty. And so you run into that problem. So it's like a case by case basis. I just think as parents, we need to do our research. We need to do our due diligence to make sure we understand, all that's involved, all the resources that you're afforded and able to receive. My beginnings are a little different because my son was born premature. He was 1 pound, 2 ounces at birth. And I stayed at the Ronald McDonald House in Philadelphia for 4 months after he was at the Livingston NICU for 5 months. So he was in the hospital for a total of 9 months. And so he had the best of the best at Children's Hospital in Philadelphia, which is the best children's hospital on the East Coast. And he was there for 4 months. He was seen by the chair of cardiology, the chair of pulmonology. He had pulmonary hypertension. So, they really set me up for greatness when I left. They gave me an unabridged binder of every possible resource that he would need to be successful and get the services that he needs, so that it would prevent him from going back to the hospital. They're also the one that diagnosed my son with autism. So it wasn't even his primary care physician in New Jersey. It was the physicians that were attending to him in Philadelphia.
I see. Oh, and then welcome to the set. You have a sister on the West Coast, and that's Zakia Watts.
Hola, sis.
Hola.
Hola. Hey,
Yes,
Zakia.
yes. So I'm not going to hog it. We only have, an hour tonight, 51 minutes left to go. So let's start with Tanisha with your questions. Then we'll go to Zakia, then my brother Clayton.
So I'm going to say Ola again to you. So you said that the physician actually diagnosed your son. Was it at 9 months, or how did they figure that he had he actually had that type of diagnosis as far as like autism?
Yeah, so when he came home, he was seen for about, I would say, a total of maybe like 8 or 9 years,
Okay.
outpatient with Children's Hospital. But it was at the age of 1.5, 2, that the doctors noticed that he wasn't reaching certain milestones. And they said that he may be on the spectrum. And that wasn't something I wanted to accept at a 1.5 years, because he had spent 9 months in the hospital. But I waited 6 months before I even accepted that 2-year diagnosis of autism. So once I accepted that, they gave me the medical certification. They gave me all the information that I needed in Philly, for Philly and New Jersey, to get services, early intervention. I'm telling you, everything from early intervention to transition when they're 18.
So did you think because the baby was a preemie that actually has something to do with it? Was that your first response to that diagnosis?
That's a great question. While he was in the NICU, I did a lot of research,
Okay.
and the community resource center, just trying to figure out a way to get my son home.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a thin line between being delayed and having autism. So there's some parallels, and there's some things that are just very distinct. And those distinctions were the milestones he was not making. Now I'm a fan of alternative health, holistic health. So that is something that I have implemented in my practices with my son. I know everybody is not in line with that, but that, I believe, me adapting to that lifestyle has helped limit the amount of symptoms that he has. My goal is to try to make him higher functioning, but
Okay.
he definitely is in a better place. He had seizures, and this lifestyle has gotten him off his seizure meds and removed the seizures, or they haven't come back.
So, and one more question. So is it like is it called Asperger's or something like that? Or is he like functioning? Does he have function? Can he function, or, or is he, what is the function?
Yeah, I mean, every child on the spectrum can function. They have degrees of
Okay.
functioning, right? Like, so no child on the spectrum is the same.
Okay.
And I think it makes it easier for people who don't have or don't know a lot about autism to try to like group it. And I don't think it's malicious in intent. I just think it's a matter of raising awareness and educating people who
Right.
don't live this every day of their lives, right? So don't ever think like any question is like I'm gonna get offended.
Yeah.
But the group I know we want to tread lightly because we don't
Okay.
want to hurt feelings. My
Okay.
feelings are not easily hurt,
Okay.
right? Like, so
Okay.
Asperger is the higher functioning
Okay.
of autism, so they have more speech, they may be able to work.
Okay.
And then you have children like my son who have some speech, but he doesn't have that social intelligibility, where if you ask him, for example, a question, how was your day? And he'll just riddle off to you his routine for the day. But that's not the typical response you're looking for. Like, oh, what did you do? How was it? How was your friends? Right? Like, so it's more in line with routine.
I got it. Okay. Okay. All right.
And then you have those that are just have no speech at all, and they need augmented devices to communicate to people.
Now I'm going to ask one more thing. I don't want to take over the show, but have you ever heard like hyperbarics and stuff like that, where you do the oxygen chambers that actually supposed to help with children with, like any type of forms of autism or any type of things like that when it comes to like slow development? I don't want to say slow development, like I'm saying, trying to dance around that, but there's something called like the hyperbarics, which is a concentrated level of oxygen in a chamber that can actually help reconnect and actually help with brain functioning as far as like someone that maybe suffer from autism. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, I have.
Okay.
I've heard of a lot of things.
Okay.
And honestly, I have to go with how spirit resonates with me.
Okay, I got it.
Because I think with autism being so heightened now, there's more children on the spectrum. Now there are people that are doing all these researches and using our children as, beta testers to see if this would work.
Okay.
And I'm just a firm believer that for any dis-ease that's here, there is a cure, and a lot of it stems from food and what we take in.
I agree.
That can cure us. In addition to just love for our children and implementing certain practices that can help them get used to the routine and meeting them where they are, and not having an expectation on how we want them to perform, but accepting them where they are and maximizing off their strengths instead of managing their disability, their different ability.
Okay. Okay. All right. Makes sense. I don't know who's
Zakia?
next. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Hola.
Hola.
So, just a little background with myself. I have worked with quite a few kids that had autism and some sort of disability. I had coached a swimming team with kids with autism, and I have worked with also the Disability Sports Festival. So I do believe that you are right. Every kid is their own individual person. Some are nonverbal, some are verbal, some have sensory challenges. So I completely get that. And I even think they're all amazing because once they get comfortable with you, and you get to reduce their hyperactivity and you get their emotions regulated. They're just amazing children. They really are. So the questions that I do have for you is that autism is often seen through behavioral lens. Oh, my car again went off. There we go. Autism is often seen through a behavioral lens, but physical health also plays an equal important role in that as well. So how do you ensure like your son's physical health is prioritized along with his developmental needs?
I think that's a great question. First, I want to say thank you for being one of those people that are in it for the reason and not the season. Because they love swimming.
Oh,
That
yes,
is one
they love
universal
water.
thing, and I definitely think it's a sensory thing, right? Like just the splashing, the floating. I think there's so much input they get from the water, and it's just soothing overall, even as adults, right? Like it's soothing to be. There's something therapeutic about being in the water. But to answer your question, I'm a big proponent of not treating my child like he's in a self-contained world. Meaning I don't allow him to just do things that are autistic specific, right? Like autism programs, right? Like he skates, he swims, he plays basketball, he does karate, he plays football. So it's not as frequent, and that's one of my pet peeves. It's not as consistent as a typical after school program where it runs for a season. They may be 6 or 8 weeks. But it's important for me that he has that balance of education, that balance of good diet, and that balance of exercise. And so I keep him engaged. And what I've noticed with his therapy sessions, the more active and engaged he's in extracurricular activities, he does better in school, and he does better with his therapy sessions. So I think it's hard. I'm not going to say it's easy work to find these programs. You may have to travel, right? Because they may not be in your immediate area. But, just doing your due diligence and researching and finding these places to make sure that they have that balance of education, diet, and what is extracurricular activity, so they get that physical input. Because there's a release of source. There's something chemically that happens. There's something psychologically that happens when they're engaging. It's like this pent up aggression of emotions that they get that they're able to release through extracurricular activities. Some schools have sensory rooms if they have episodes in school, and he utilizes it less when he's more active outside of school.
Okay.
I hope that answers your
I
question.
agree with that because like you were saying, like there's something about it as far as like releasing chemicals. Like when you have them do like any type of physical activity, it's definitely releasing endorphins. It helps with stress and anxiety. I know sometimes they get worked up. And sometimes they get worked up in environments that they're not familiar with. I believe that physical health and exercise, it improves their motor skills. I think it helps with coordination. Like you said, they love swimming. I've had a couple of children where at first they were nervous. They didn't even want to stick a toe in there,
Right.
but then once you got them comfortable, it was kind of like it was almost hard to get them out of the water. So I highly recommend swimming, yoga, any kind of sports that they are interested in. I think it helps it builds their social skills as well, group activity, social interaction, and develop some sort of communication skills as well, and focus and attention, especially those that are like nonverbal. So they kind of use their hands or they use expressions a lot to express themselves. So I do see that in your bio, you've been in autism walks for Essex County. You did bowling for autism, and you also did the Disability Sports Festival. That's commendable. So have you noticed any particular fitness or recreational activities in particular besides roller skating that has significantly benefited from your son's physical and emotional well-being?
I would say it's a tie between basketball and swimming. I like to introduce him to everything just to see what sticks. And he's always had an affinity for basketball. I think that's hereditary. And the swimming probably, but we all understand, we already discussed the swimming, but definitely basketball, because it teaches him how to, work on a team, right? How to share, understanding nonverbal clues with basketball, right? I mean, it's an interesting dynamic to see when they play basketball, because they'll have the aides on the court with them, so like to help give them clues until they can do it independently. So I think basketball is huge because we don't live in a self-contained world, and so it teaches them how to coexist and express their needs with other people. So it's a great skill, and it's done in a recreational way.
Amazing. Actually, that answered one of my other questions I was going to ask. So we'll just skip that. So your upcoming book, it highlights your journey with your son.
Yes.
What key insights or lessons do you hope that readers, especially parents that have kids with autism, will take away from it?
It's an absolutely great question, and you're trying to get me to give away the title, but I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. No,
it's a surprise. Keep it a surprise.
You're good though. You're really good. I'm going to say the biggest thing, I want parents that are going through this journey to know, I make it a little emotional, that they're not alone, right? Because when you go through this journey, because you hear all the statistics and every child is not the same, you sort of think that you're in this by yourself because nobody else would understand, right? Especially if a lot of your peers and friends are not people that go through this, and their responses to anything that you go through is very dismissive. I want them to be able to feel from my words that someone else gets it. Okay. I want people that
Oh, it's all right.
It's all right. We're here. We're here to support.
Right. Take
your time, please.
Yeah.
Take your time.
I want
Take your time.
people who don't go through it to understand that they're not bad children, right? And to educate them on what women or men or families, grandmothers, whoever the guardians are, have to go through in their way of managing themselves. You may not understand it.
Take your time, sis.
Take your time. Take your time.
Sis, how you gonna make me cry?
I'm sorry. I'm trying to laugh, but it's just like, it's beautiful. I want to say, like, I truly commend you. I think it's absolutely amazing. I think it's beautiful that you do so much in the community with children that have autism, and even emotionally and professionally use your profession, like your master's in counseling and psychology, which I know and influences your approach in advocating for your son's and supporting his development. So for you to not only do that for yourself and for the development of your child, but to put that into a book and give people insight on that, because not a lot of people understand what it's like to actually hone in and take care of a child that has needs, that has special needs or autism or any type of like Down syndrome or just any disability in general. Me personally, taking the time out to sit one-on-one with a child or even with a group of children and to have that patience, have that understanding. And I always say, just people in general, you got to have grace and you got to have compassion and patience. Yeah. But with these kids in general, the more that you give that to them, the more love and dedication that you give to them, they grow so much. And you would think that, some people on the outside looking in, they deem it as a burden. They deem it as a hindrance. They don't understand. So for you to sit there and have, lessons and insights on an upcoming book, which I'm not going to have you spoil the title. I'm not going to spoil the title there. I think that's amazing. I really do think that. And I think that even parents or people that don't have kids or don't have children with autism need to read this because they need to be understanding and supportive for those in their circle or loved ones that do.
Yes. And
Absolutely.
thank you, sis, for
Absolutely.
helping me while I
Yeah.
get my tears together.
Oh
No,
no.
that's definitely what it is. There's a lot of family and friends of people who have to manage this lifestyle because there's a thin line between managing the care for your child and then loving your child. I had to learn that
Mhm.
because I'm work, right? Like I'm thinking like work, like we got to get this done and this done and that done. And I had a physician have to tell me, just love your child. And I was like, I do love my child. I wouldn't be here every day if I didn't love my child. I wouldn't be at the NICU twice a day and going to work and coming back and forth to the hospital. But what the other audience that I really wanted to target is that friends and families of people that think they understand and they don't know when they're saying things that may come off insulting or minimizing or
Mhm.
dismissive,
Mhm.
right? To help them understand that no, I don't have an attitude. I'm managing, right? Like I'm
Mhm.
trying to manage this. And a lot of us look through the lens of a life that we're accustomed to and not understanding the life that I have to live. And so this book is to really help people see, to help them see through a different lens so that they can be a little bit more empathetic and understanding of what we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis and realize how much a lot of people really do take for granted.
And that's true. And so you also have to think
Yeah.
about things as far as like when your son gets older, but beyond the age of 18 and 21. So you have to look at that too as well.
He's
So
right there. He's 18 next year.
yeah. So you have to
So
look at it.
that's just a whole new uncharted territory for me. But again, like it's just life. It's just
Yeah.
school. The learning never stops
Right.
for me.
Mhm.
And so I'm always seeking knowledge, seeking
Yeah.
information. I never want to be the smartest person in the room,
Mhm.
because there's so much I don't know. And to take that humble approach, information continue to come to me because if you ever always the smartest person in the room, where's the growth?
There you
Where,
go.
where do you continue to grow? And there's so much about this we don't know. So I continue to take this humble approach. I continue to be grateful,
Mhm.
even when it's hard to be, because it can always be worse. Right? Like I don't think any one of us planned to have a life like this, but we had to pull ourselves up by our bootstrap and say, this is the life that I've been given, and I'm gonna make the best out of it. And I'm grateful to be
Mhm.
able to say you're grateful for that.
Count it all as joy.
Right.
Yep.
Thank you. I believe those are my questions that I have. Thank you so
I
much.
loved it. Thank you for
Well, hopefully you have more. These are brilliant questions, and I'm learning a lot.
As
In my
maybe as
immediate,
we go, I'm gonna be like, oh, let me ask this. But yeah,
well, you can
I'm off my
sometimes.
soapbox now.
You know, I want to hear from Clayton next, and then I have a question.
Okay. Greetings, sisters. How are you all?
Well,
hey.
good to
Hey,
see you.
And
hola.
welcome.
Hello, man.
Bye.
Hello, sis. I said I wasn't going to say anything. I was going to sit back and just listen to the information and soak it up. But things just dawned on me, and I want you to know, sister, that the autistic children, they are beautifully and wonderfully made, just like anyone else, and they just have their way of adapting and developing. Just like I think, correct me if I'm wrong, because this is not my wheelhouse, that is on the line of maybe somebody with ADHD or introverted people, or with any other they call disability. But sometimes I wouldn't want to call it a disability. They may have something a lot more. Uh, God may have blessed them with something that I don't have, because we have a whole lot of people walking this earth that's supposed to have everything together, and those are the main ones we need to manage. Um, if you know what I mean. So I think they're specially made. It's almost to me like paraplegic. They can move in ways I cannot, and I wish I did have the energy that they have. They have a better spirit than most of us have. They will go out there and do stuff that I'm complaining about. So when you start talking about there's different levels of autism, uh, some may become the doctors and the uh, politicians and better people than we're facing today. So I want to ask this question. Do you think a lot of that is a result of some trauma or stresses that the parent or mother may have went through before having a child or birthing a child or that passed on?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of theories about autism and what causes it, if it's genetic, if it's related to vaccines, if it's related to
Yeah.
a predisposition, if there's like family history of it. I think there's a conglomerate of things that it could possibly be. And I try not to consume myself with the why, right? I look at what's present now and work with my son with what he has right now, as you were speaking about, like, why is he here? Like, what is this? Why is he here? And what is he here to teach me?
Right.
Right. It took me a while to get to that point. And I think you can ask that of any child. You know, when we have children, they're here to teach us something
Yes.
about ourselves. It's about our development. It's about just personality development, like just being able to not be as judgmental of people. I can honestly say my son has changed my character altogether. You know, I was one of those loose cannons, and you know, if it was on my mind, I just said it. It was like knee-jerk reaction. And when I had my
Yeah.
son, he really did, he made me a better person, even to the point where people told me, you've changed.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I've changed in ways that I can't even imagine. He has shown me beauty in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
He's shown me tenacity in a different way. He's made me more disciplined.
You're
But
right.
he's also taught me how to accept people where they are.
Mm-hmm.
Where a lot of times we think it's just isolated to children or
Mm-hmm.
people that are on the spectrum, but you can carry that over into your everyday life with everything and everybody.
Yeah,
So
that's
he's
true.
made me a better person. And so in that, I feel like that's part of his reason in being here. The other part is for me, because he's not mine. He just came through me, right? If we want to
Right.
go there, he's not mine,
Now, yeah,
right? Like, you
trust me
know,
when I
and
tell
so
you. I'm
mhm.
sorry. Trust me when I tell you, I wasn't trying to be judgmental at all. But
No,
you
I
did.
didn't feel that
You
way.
mentioned in the beginning, it's something tied into nutrition and being balanced with how you take care of yourself. I don't know if that was something transition throughout the DNA, or I was just asking questions because I didn't know
See,
where
I'm
to
not
go
a
with this.
doctor, so I try to steer away from that. I have my theories,
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
right? But I can't officially say either way. If that is, I just have my opinion. And based on my opinion and how spirit moved me,
Mm-hmm.
that's how I moved with healing my son. And the biggest form of healing is through food. And it proved my son did have seizures. He had seizures. He had 3, and he was on a med that made him irritable. I did
Hmm.
my research and I put him on a strict diet. He does not have seizures anymore, and he is off of those meds.
Amen.
Fantastic.
That's all I'm
Amen.
going to say about that. I'm not going to
Amen.
say I'm a doctor, but all I know is that it worked.
I know,
Mm.
but the mother is
Okay.
the doctor. We've been the doctors all along.
Right on.
Started
Absolutely.
That is true.
started with us in the kitchen, so you are the doctor.
Mm,
Love
Absolutely.
is the ultimate medicine.
Yep.
absolutely.
Sure.
A
Yeah.
question. You say you put him on a strict diet. Can you tell us does that diet consist of?
He does not eat gluten. He
There
does
you go.
not eat cheese.
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
I cook a lot. So
Can I get a
I'm
plate?
even transitioning more to plant-based right now, but I haven't gotten there yet. I'm doing my research,
Mm-hmm.
trying to get my mind there, you know, but he eats very clean. He's not gonna go out into the world and I'm not gonna throw him a chicken nugget. You know, he's not gonna have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. He doesn't drink cow's milk. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it is either oat milk, hemp milk. You know what I mean? He has string beans, a lot of vegetables. I do plant-based vegan protein for his smoothies. He does super greens. He does black seed. You know, I do oregano oil on his feet. I do these baths, steam baths, like you name it. Like I've done a lot, you know, and I really accredit a lot of that to Queen of Food, because I went through her rites of passage program years ago before I even thought about doing whatever I needed to do to have a child, right? Like, so, you know, I went through her program a couple of times. So she definitely laid the foundation for me. And now I understand why she was introduced to me when she was, because it was right on time from when I had my son, as far as what I needed to do to heal him.
You know, we talked earlier today, and I asked, because I've heard it more than once, more than a couple of times, that people who have autistic children, they say that it's important for you to develop a routine for them. You and I talk about this off air, because if you throw them off their routine, it will sometimes make them irritable, sometimes make them not motivate them. They are not motivated to do what they were normally doing when they were accustomed to their schedule. It's like it's just like us all. We have an internal clock, right? And so they know when something is off, and so they don't function as well as they could if they're off their routine. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I would say this. The younger they are and you get them on a routine or a schedule, the easier it would be to implement certain things and certain changes. As they get older, you know, I always make a joke about this because I feel like I can. You know, everything is delayed except for the teenage attitude, right? Like that attitude is like right on schedule. Right on. Nothing, everything else is delayed except for that. So like when they get to the teenage age, like you still get the attitudes and things like that, but because you laid the foundation with the routine, like, you know, this is what we do when we wake up, this is what we do when we come home, we do homework, and then we're going to go to this on this day. But to also create an allowance for change, because the world is not a routine, and one thing that is consistent, and that is change, right? And so a part of my routine for him is to give him that choice of, do you want to do this or that? So he feels inclusive and he doesn't feel like mommy is just always telling him what to do, right? Like you have a choice. I let him pick out his clothes, but I give him 2 choices, because if I give him too many choices, he'll get overstimulated, right? Like you have to understand your child. And so I implement that to help educate him on choices. And to help educate him on change so that he can self-regulate, and then implementing routines to help him breathe. Like you mentioned yoga, right? So we do the breathing exercises, counting down. During COVID, when he was upset because he got tired of being in the house, that was hard. 3 times a day, we went outside running. Like it was like Rocky. I was in the car because I wasn't doing all that running, but he was running in front of me in the car. Okay. I said, we're going to run this out because you're not driving me crazy, but it's just trying to find those creative solutions, right? To help you help them and help yourself. Because if you don't have your sanity, what good are you to your child, right? So like those creative solutions, like it really forces you to really dig deep and into you to figure out what would you need. Right, because they're human beings just like us. Like we want to think that they're different because they have this different ability, but they're human, just like us. They have emotions. They just express it differently, and it's being able to be on the same level as them and seeing them the same way as you were when you were a kid, and what were your needs. And that's how I approached everything I have with my son. So to address your point with change and routine, the earlier you do it, the better.
Yeah.
Not to say when they're older and you implement it when you're older, it just take a little longer
right.
for them to adapt.
I can see the car is just waiting to jump in here. I got one more question, then we're going to toss it on. We talked also, there are levels of autism, if I understand correctly. And we also talk about there are some that seem to be borderline genius on some certain areas in life, whether
Yeah,
it's
that's what I
math, music,
yeah.
or
Mhm.
can you address some of those things?
Oh yeah.
I would, like I said earlier, I think every child on the spectrum is different, and they've been gifted with a different talent and ability.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's trying to tap into what my son's ability is. He's very athletic, and he's if he was not on the spectrum, he would be coined as that all-American student, because he just all around, he gets along with everyone. He excels in school. He always wants to get like everything right, and he does, but he's very hard on himself. And then he excels athletically, right? Like, so he would have been that child in a typical school where he might have gotten that scholarship to a college on an academic or sports scholarship, because he's just naturally good at those things. But I don't let that excuse the fact that he's not atypical, right, to stop me from having him explore those type of things. Now, other children may have different gifts and abilities. I just charge parents, once they tap into what their child's gift is to really like nurture it and help it grow. I think a lot of times parents see that their child has a gift, they're like, okay, great, he's good at that, and they just leave him be. But it's work, but like find a way to see if they can make a living off of that. See if there's a way that they can set a record or something, but it requires you to do work and research on that. So I think every child has a different ability, and I think that in and of itself is a gift and a talent to be able to be here and coexist in a world that doesn't make them a priority.
Mm-hmm. Nakaya?
I don't know if I have any questions. It's just really just adding on to everything she was saying. Now, when you were mentioning about like kids with autism that have special gifts, it immediately made me think of the movie The Accountant. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with it, but it was this guy who had autism, but he was really good with numbers. Like he was able to like really dial down. I think it was like 2 decades of calculations of finances and find out like what was going on with it. And he was an amazing marksman. So be careful. Y'all think these autism kids can do no,
they were smart.
So, but to tie into that, I think that is amazing that you were saying that you have to set them on a routine, but also give them their sense of independence. So like you were saying, like instead of just doing one toy, you give them an option of 2, because that way that's kind of like, all right, self-expression in the sense. All right, he has a blue toy, you have a red toy. He's going to go for a red toy, or he's going to go for this or that. You're giving him that sense of choice. It's also self-expression. I think that a lot of the things that you tied in not only just shows that you are supporting him, but it also is showing love. It's showing a lot of love there. You have patience. Like you said, it helps develop tenacity within you. And people are saying that they see a difference in you. And I think that a lot of that is tying into how present you have to be with him. I think that also ties into you having to model self-love for yourself, for him to see that as well, to know, okay, this is okay. You're fostering their own confidence in the opportunities that he has, like you said, in a world that doesn't prioritize them. So like I do think that you're advocating for his happiness. I think that everything that you're doing is going to make him become a very successful person in this world that is very chaotic. I always say all the time, we live in the most insensitive world yet today. And
that's it perfectly.
The system to help us.
Well said.
Yeah. So I said, I commend you.
Well said.
Thank you. Thank you.
Tanisha?
I was gonna ask, does he have a girlfriend? Does he date? Has he ever dated anybody? You know.
Man, I think this boy done had more girlfriends than I've had boyfriends. I've had friends. I don't know how he do it. He come home with stories. I tell you, it you don't need too many words apparently. Maybe I've been talking too much.
You give him a look, like you know what's up. You know what's
Right. He's all he's a ladies' man.
So
Portrait is
you
always
telling us the brother is also a player. He's a player
Yeah,
too.
I mean, he know the ladies. He been around ladies all this time. You know, he been around nurses
Oh
all
yeah.
this time, so he knows what women want.
He knows.
I've had my own
Yeah,
personal
give me
experience.
my medication today, girl.
Yes, he'll come up to you, rub your arm, and
Uh-oh.
whisper in your ear, phone.
Uh-oh.
He wants your phone.
A lady man.
Yes, he knows what he wants and know how to get it.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Yep.
Oh, I'm not mad at him. I'm not mad with him.
I'm not mad.
Form.
Tanisha, you had to ask that, didn't you? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No, that's a good question. We talked about now. What I've noticed also, like we're talking about, you can see genius in a lot of our children, autistic children. And Clayton brought up something earlier, and I'm trying to remember exactly what he said. But what I'm seeing is that God has given all of us the ability to do something. And it just seems like those children who are autistic, it seems like they are more focused on what they're trying to accomplish than some of us who don't have autism or anything else, right? Do you find that when like you said, he's hard on himself, or they are hard on themselves? Do you find out that they are more focused on what they're doing? They pay more attention to detail as far as it's concerned. They really want to be perfect or get it right as much as they can. Do you see something there? Am I making any sense?
No, you are. I'm thinking. When I do that, I'm thinking, right? Like,
Okay.
so and I'm just thinking of stories of people that I've just talked to in passing or from any type of involvement that I was participating in. And I want to say this is that I think all all children that are on the spectrum have their little I can't even think of the word, their little what's the word I'm looking for, where I'm lost for words right now, but nuances that if things are not lined up correctly, if their shoe is not tied correctly, and things like that. But I don't know if it's just a part of their personality or if it's a part of the diagnosis itself. Right. I haven't done a lot of digging into the research of that, but just from observation from children on the spectrum, I noticed they have certain particular preferences when it comes to maybe food or where their seat is, if it's certain sounds, if it's certain textures. So as far as his own personal, as he's gotten older, he really prides himself in getting it right and pleasing people. And I think that's part of his personality, right? Like he wants to get it right. He wants you proud of him. He wants you to be happy. He likes people to feel inclusive. That's his thing. I'm not saying every child on the spectrum is that way. So I was trying to figure out the distinction between if it's really related to autism or if it's really just their personality. And I feel like that is his personality. I think one of the precursors or the markers for being on the spectrum is the whole repetition, saying things the same, saying things over and over again, having things a certain way and things like that are common across the board. But there is like a thin line between what is autism and what is their personality. And it really just takes you to really like observe your children to understand if what is the dissociative property or difference between autism and what their personality is. And then that comes through trial and error, watching them interact with other children, having experiences with either volunteering or being around other children on the spectrum to see if there are any commonalities.
Okay. I do have a question.
No, go on, please.
It kind of ties into that because you're like how you were just asking her about they're hard on themselves, having a routine, doing certain things to people please in a sense. Can you share a moment where you felt most proud of your son's growth or achievements to where he made you proud?
Yeah, it's funny because it's not the big things, it's the little things that make me. You trying to make me cry again? No, so no, I'm good this time. But my biggest thing for him is to really be able to take care of himself, right? Not to rely a lot on me for the activities of his daily living. And I worked with him since he was, I guess, about 8 to wash dishes, take the trash out. I mean, who likes to do those chores, right? So
Right.
there was resistance, washing clothes, but that's a huge skill for a child that's on the spectrum, separating clothes, washing dishes, taking the garbage out. I think the proudest moment was because I have the calendar up, I have the whiteboard up. This is the day, this is the time. He needed no clue from me on the weekend. He separated the clothes. He started the clothes. He knew it was Saturday and the garbage had to go out. He just took it out on his own. And when the garbage truck came and left, he came and brought the garbage can back in. And he came in the house and said, "Mommy, done. I'm done with my chores." I start crying. He looked at me like, "What's wrong with you?" Right? But the simple fact that he didn't need a clue from me or prompt from me to tell him to do it. He understood why it had to be done. He knew when it was supposed to be done. He knew how to do it. He knew how to troubleshoot, if something didn't go right. He knew when to ask for help. There's so many skills enveloped in being able to do all those things. Plus, they were multi-stepped processes.
Mm-hmm.
That was huge for me. Because that's just one less thing. I didn't have to worry about him eloping when he took the garbage can outside. Because these are like basic questions they ask you in CABS assessment or any assessment when you're trying to get services and things like that. Do they elope? Do you have to wash them for this many times? And he did it all independently. Not to say he still doesn't need assistance, but it just showed so much growth for him where I didn't have to tell him to do it. Like he understood completely. And then that when I was so proud of him, his face just lit up as if like, I pleased my mommy, I did it right. Like, but I wanted him to know that he should be proud of himself, not just to please me, but you should be proud of yourself that you did it on your own and you knew the right thing to do. And me telling him that, I knew he understood and he got even more happy. And then I gave him a reward. Like so many times, like, we get upset, like, oh, I got to do this with him. And if you do that, I'm going to take this away. That's punishment. Instead, like, okay, if you do this right, by the third time, then you'll get this. It's like you want to change things from punishment to reward. I think the reward lasts longer than the punishment. You don't want the child fearful of you. You want them to have respect. But you don't want them afraid or living a life in fear because they're already living in a world that's not making them priority to begin with.
Absolutely.
You don't want to experience that at home.
Right.
So yeah, that would be that example. That would be an example of that.
Oh, sorry.
No, go on, please. No, Tanisha, go on.
No, I was going to tell her he's doing a lot better than most people, like most husbands and boyfriends. So I commend you for taking out trash, folding up clothes, and washing dishes.
I gotta go take out my trash now.
Yeah, I mean,
We do that right after the podcast. No way.
Hey, Tanisha, perhaps you may want to give a few people her book when it comes out.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So-called normal people there. Hey, speaking of which, when is your book planned? When do you plan to release your book?
So tentatively right now we're working on the pre-sale campaign. So I'm looking at the end of January, the latest.
Awesome.
Okay.
But right now I'm working on a pre-sale campaign. Hopefully that'll be out by the end of this month. I was trying to get it out by the holiday. But life be lifing. So either by the end of this month or definitely like at the beginning of the new year.
Awesome.
Okay. Now promise us you'll come back after the book is out. That way you can unveil what's going on in it. Okay. And then my sister Nakai over there, she doesn't have to try to draw it out,
When she see the title, she gonna be like,
Only
oh.
like
Because she just
I
seemed
gotta
like that Inspector Gadget type. Like she's trying to be figuring stuff out.
Right.
I
And
just
since we
started
don't do
asking
interviews, you
inquisitive
promise us you'll
questions.
come back. You'll come back as soon as it's out, and we're gonna talk about it a little bit, talk about what's in it, and encourage people to go out and get this book because I can tell with all the work that you put in, because your son is 17 years old. So you've been doing this and studying this for a long time. And we can tell that you as a parent put the work in. And that is vitally important. And I hate to think that there are people out there who don't put the work in with their children. They sort of
Don't
get
start me on
lazy
that.
and they kind of stymie the child's development. Would you say
Yeah, I would
or
say
hinder?
a lot of parents, because it's not for the weak. I'm gonna tell you that.
Mm,
And it challenges every fabric of your being, every reality that you thought you were supposed to be living, and to really dig deep into your connection with the God of your understanding. That's why I started off this with saying, like, I had to connect with source and understand what is this supposed to be teaching me, because that drives and motivates me to show up the way that I do.
mhm.
And I'm not condemning any parent. I just see, and it is what it is. But some parents, they don't have it, and sometimes they need help. And I don't look at it to judge them. I see it as an opportunity to provide assistance. I don't gatekeep. And there's some people, the reverse side of that coin is some people gatekeep. They get information that's helped their child or helped their family member, and it's like they want to keep it all to themselves and they don't want to share. And that just to me proves
That's not
that they
good.
don't understand universal law.
Mm-hmm.
Because how do you ever expect to gain abundance if you're hoarding
Hallelujah.
and helping those that's in need?
Mm-hmm.
And what I had to learn the hard way is that the more that I gave, whether I didn't get the response that I expected from people back, I got it from a different source. Not that I did it with the intention of getting anything back, but I didn't go into it with any expectation of getting
Mhm.
anything from that person. If they got something from it, they did. If they didn't, oh well. Right? Like, but if it was on my heart to do, that's on my heart to do. But I just appeal to parents out there who have children that have a different ability, is to give grace to yourself and just just ask for help, and don't be too prideful to accept help from people. You know what I mean? If you can't do it, the creator has a way to bring in towards you the things that you need if you're open to it, right? But you really have to change your way of being, changing your frequency and your vibration so you attract those things to you.
Absolutely.
And a lot of that starts from how you function as a person. And I really feel that when we have our children, that's way of us practicing on how to get it right.
That kind
You
of
know,
actually wanted me to lead to like the last question, and then I'm done. I swear, I promise this time. I know we got 2 minutes, but we've been really discussing on like your ways of how you have a set schedule for your son, how you advocate for him. What do you do to maintain your own mental health, balancing all of
that's
this?
a great
What is your
question.
well-being as a parent, like balancing the advocacy, the work, and your own personal goals? Like,
I'm gonna call you the tear whisperer,
Tear jerker.
because you like to go deep.
I
But I
love it.
love it. I love it. And
but you never know,
the
someone
only
on the podcast could be in the same position and they're wondering these questions.
No, I think it's a great question, and I'm glad I'm in a space right now where I can answer it, because 2 years ago I was not. I had hit a very low point in my life, and it was a recalibration, if you will, right? I had to reassess because the way I was doing things was not working, and I had to think about, if I'm not good, then my son is not good. And so I had to reevaluate a lot. I had to get help. I had to ask for help. And I have an amazing coach. And he just really was instrumental in helping me understand that, you know, we are not the things that we go through. You know, it's all about how you respond to the things that you go through, and that that love is an infinite source and it comes from source. And so that whatever you give off is what you receive. So if you give it in abundance, you get that back. And I heard it and I was just like, yeah, right. You know what I mean? And I had to do something different because I know the things that I have been doing in the past weren't working for me. Right. And so I was like, if I want something different, I have to try something different. And it wasn't even a tactic, you know. It wasn't a tactic. It's a way of being. And I think a lot of the times when we do these programs, these self-development programs, like, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, there's strategies. And this is not a strategy for me. It's a becoming. Right. And it's ever evolving because things are always going to happen and you're not going to always get it right. But it's your resilience too. It's your bounce back from. It's your aha. Like, I've seen this before and I'm choosing to see it this way. It's changing your filter and choosing to see it this way, not that way, so that you can vibrate on a different level. Right. Like, it's just so much. So it was getting my mind together, because when your mind is right, everything else follows suit. So then you start taking better care of your body. You start taking better care of the relationships you have. You start taking better care of your finances. You start taking better care of your family. And it started here. It started here. And not to sound cliche, right? Because anybody that's known me over 10 or 15 years know that I normally don't talk like this. Like, it just wasn't me, right? So that pivotal moment 2 years ago really opened me to, it was a bottom, but it was an opportunity for me to just really be planted and to grow, you know what I mean? And elevate to become a different version of myself.
This is amazing. You know, we're talking about people, and some people you've heard of before, famous people who have autism. Anthony Hopkins, Elon Musk, Dan Aykroyd, Susan Boyle, Albert Einstein, you know, and Sir Isaac Newton. It goes on and on and on. And you wouldn't think that these people, Bill Gates, I mentioned him, I believe, Leonardo da Vinci, Charles Darwin. And they say, what famous person has high functioning autism? Anthony Hopkins, a master of transformation. High functioning autism, the acronym is HFA, term used to describe individuals on the autism spectrum who demonstrate relatively good language and cognitive skills. So, I mean, you know, and like I said, some of these people are borderline geniuses. And I think, like Clayton said earlier, God gave all of us an ability. I think we just need to tap into it to find out, and especially those who do what you do, my sister. This has been fascinating. Any last word, Clayton and Zakia? And
I found all the information very interesting, and thank you, sister, for bringing the light to us. And I can see what the blessings that God has put on you and your family through all of this, because with the struggles you mentioned became successes as well. And I appreciate your intelligence. Thank you, sis.
Thank you.
Tanisha?
I just want to leave off with 2 Corinthians chapter 10:5, you know, cast it down your imaginations. And that's what you had to do in order to lift yourself up to be able to deal with what you were dealing with in the past 2 years. So kudos to you. And I look forward to seeing you again, and just keep up the strength.
Okay. Zakia?
Here she goes. I love you, sis.
I love it. I love it.
But I just know that there's a saying, there's a quote that says, you know, everything has its beauty. Not everyone sees it. But, you know, beauty is an eye of the beholder. And what I see from what you were saying and just this conversation, you're a wonderful person inside and out. I greatly appreciate having this conversation with you on this podcast. I pray that, you know, blessings come to you from now until forever. So thank you.
I received that. Thank you, sis.
And I just got another text message from a fan of ours, and she says, yep, her grandson loves women as well. What is it about these? What in the world?
They the top players.
They have needs.
Marksmen and players.
They have needs.
Creators.
Oh boy, oh boy. I guess they have game too. Hey, okay.
Yes,
Hey, I want to thank you all for this. This has been an amazing hour. Uh, Sister Zakia, you have to come back.
I
Uh,
will.
when your book is released, please come back and share
I
it with
will.
us because there's a lot to talk about. And you have some fans out there, you have some friends. And I thought after speaking to you, I said, this will be a fascinating conversation, didn't I?
Mhm.
Can I
I
give a shout out
yeah, you sure can.
to my sister Rock, who has always been an ace in my pocket? She
Right.
always supportive of me, even
Mhm.
back when I was stepping. That sister is the true definition of what sisterhood is about.
She
I
is.
love
She
you,
is.
sis.
Mm.
She's a
Mwah.
good
Right.
people.
Hola.
And
Oh, wow.
Nakaya, you must meet Rock. Nakaya, you must meet her. As a matter of fact, she wanted to know which number we're on the.
Oh yeah, Nakaya would love Rock.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Let her know
she
which one
would.
is yours. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Hey, sisters. Hey, thank you so much, Clayton. This has been
Yes, sir.
fascinating, man. And if you guys want to check this out, you can go to our YouTube channel, Studio W The Buzz. Studio W The Buzz is up there right now. It will also be in the website. The website is studiow.buzz. Studio W. Don't forget the W. Studio W.buzz. Studio W.buzz. Available on, like I say, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. Also, our station, The Buzz. You can check us out on our apps, Alexa, Apple CarPlay. We're all over the place. But go to the website. It'll be up in 24 hours. The full episode will be up. Uh, Studio W Buzz. Studio W Buzz can be heard anywhere around the world. Hey guys, thank you so much. Enjoy your evening. And we have one more broadcast. Nakia, Clayton, and Tanisha. Also, you, my sister Zakia, one more broadcast before the end of the year. Okay, and that's
Oh
next week.
man.
Make sure
Oh,
you tune in. I think that
thank
will be our